Hi, you guys. What's up? This is Alina, and I'm a growth marketing manager with Nextiva. And today we're going to talk about something that's extremely interesting to me, as well as a couple of my friends, and we've been talking about this for a while now, is this disconnect between the content, brand, and product marketing teams, which is leading to a lot of confusion these days. So let's chat about why this is important. And before that, I'm going to share with you just quickly about what we're going to talk about in general over these, next couple of or like 15 minutes on this session. So obviously, I'm going to start with what this relationship between product marketing, brand, and content looks like today, and why it's broken and a missing component that could kind of fix everything together. And the next thing we're going to talk about is why exactly there's a disjoint, and it's because of their individual KPIs. And then what this new approach is that you could take to fix this, as well as what it could result in. And I'm going to take an example of a product launch to show you how these three different teams can come together with this fourth person that I'm talking about for all the different results that you guys are aiming for in terms of retentions, more signups, just more engagement with all of your content. So right now, I'm just going to move my screen down here. Clearly, the fourth person in this equation is SEO. And you probably guessed it too, given my background. But what mostly happens today is either one of these. It's usually when all these different teams work on something and it's almost the end of the project and you say, okay, you know what, let's just slap some SEO on it. Or it's completely ignoring SEO in the first place because none of these three different teams, and they're not expected to, have a background in SEO or don't really understand what SEO can do for what the different projects that they're working on. And on the flip side, SEOs never really understand these three topics either. You see some amount of collaboration with content and SEO, but these other two teams are pretty alien to the SEO team. So I'm going to go into the KPIs, and those are the culprits today about why this is really broken. And that's because each of these different teams have such varying KPIs that have zero overlap. And I'm not going to go into the details, but and you know it better than me, product marketing relies heavily on super bottom of the funnel metrics like lifetime value and customer acquisition costs, or annual contract values. And you move on to brand and PR, we're talking about metrics like active coverage and share of voice, and I have no clue how to measure these. And I've been trying to understand if anybody has a solid framework for this, and I haven't come across any. So if you guys know how exactly you can measure these different metrics under PR and brand, please hit me up. And in terms of content, I'm not saying everybody follows these KPIs, but 90% of the content teams I've seen out there chasing, brand awareness and traffic and sales leads and MQLs per program, each of these have a disconnect, and that's what I'm going to cover next. It's because the product marketing KPIs tend to be too bottom of the funnel focused, and it's almost never without any sort of SEO input. And with respect to brand and PR, there's just too many vanity metrics. Like you just don't know, you don't have a proper framework to measure it. Neither does it really add any sort of value. So measuring sentiment as well as potential reach, it doesn't really give you any sort of baseline to work with on your next campaign. And even in terms of content, none of those metrics I mentioned over there on the previous slide really tell you, okay, blog 1, these are different things that I did that did or did not work. So these are the lessons I can take to blog 2. So none of it in terms of content or engagement, you don't have any sort of results there. So, clearly this isn't working. All these different teams are chasing different metrics, and they need to be on the same page. And what I'm going to cover next is how product marketing and SEO can work together. But before that, I'm going to give you a typical scenario, right? Because I've been in a product marketing team, and I've also been one of those people that said, okay, let's just finish working on the entire campaign and then go to the SEO team and talk to them about how to add some SEO into this. So the problem with that is, the way product marketers are wired to think is very product positioning and messaging, as well as they might not always know what exactly a user or a customer or a prospect might be searching for. And they don't know that, say, for example, you have a website that's been ranking phenomenally well for business VoIP. And then for a product launch or a feature launch, you decide, because it's maybe a B2B sales related feature or a product, you want to suddenly start ranking for, I don't know, sales pipeline. It's not going to work. Your traffic is just going to dip because you have built over a particular period of time domain authority on business VoIP, and suddenly you're not going to be able to rank for something else that is entirely out of your realm because Google thinks and knows that this is what you have expertise on. So what you need to do, so those are the different gaps I'm talking about. If you did have an SEO working with you right from the beginning, things could look a lot different. And that's what this is about. Like, I've just only pointed out 3 because we don't have too much time here, but you think beyond the obvious keywords. Like, if you do have a sales CRM, for example, instead of trying to chase that very competitive, crowded, super high volume keyword, you want to start talking with your SEO about other options, probably like sales meeting agenda or, I don't know, sales engineer job description, some of these things that are in your domain that could grab potential attention from your different prospects. But it's not really those high-ranking keywords that all these other websites with probably like a 91 domain authority is already ranking for. And it's super difficult to try and do that from scratch, and I've been in teams where we're trying to do it, and we go about it all the different ways. So start from the bottom, start with those low-hanging edge keywords, work with your SEO to figure out what that is, how that aligns with, your new messaging or this new product launch or feature launch or whatever it is. And then the other thing that's important is also, which you might not think about when you're thinking about only from your product perspective, is just look from the outside. Where are your competitors? What other keywords are they talking about? Can you also potentially rank for those keywords and topics and ideas? And that's where you can help too. And in my next example, I'm going to talk about brand and PR coming together. And what's broken here is the fact that you see a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, vanity metrics that is not really measurable. And that's a problem today because there's lots of volume of work going on, but none of it's really measurable. And so when you sit together with your PR team and your SEO team together, there's opportunity for you to approach it scientifically. And the biggest thing I've seen are press releases as well as PR pitches, like these pitches that you send out to journalists. Both of these, and press releases, I'm not a big fan of them because these different newswire sites, they started using no follow links, so it doesn't really add any amount of SEO juice or like link juice to your own website anyway. But what you can do, which is a fun exercise, is figure out where you have unlinked mentions, like where is your brand mentioned that you haven't really found out about, is which is on high domain authority websites that you could reach out to for like a byline or a quote or something like that. And you get all these different mentions that are already out there, which is, again, you don't have to start from scratch, which your SEO can help you figure out, as well as these different PR campaigns that are a gateway for you to pitch ideas to. So you work with your SEO team and you say, okay, I'm rolling out this huge campaign. This is what it's about. It's going to create a lot of social media buzz. But how do I use that as fuel to relevant websites and pitch ourselves and get some, high quality backlinks to our website? It's a win-win for everybody, right? And also just monitoring these different, threads on Twitter, like journal requests or PR requests or help a reporter. Just working with your SEO to figure out which of these you can curate and pick, and which of these make sense, which of these are like fast options for you to get some attention, instead of just praying and praying, instead of just reaching out about 100 different outlets, of which probably not even 2 is going to get back to you. And I'm going to give you an example there, which I've seen quite a few companies do, is every time you have a big launch, you want to get on TechCrunch, right? And TechCrunch has seen it all. They're not going to do this if you've launched a new product or a new feature. What you can do instead is try and figure out if they have a whole list of broken links outgoing from their website. Does it make sense to link to your resource from there, or is one of their just to be able to build a relationship with one of their authors, they have a personal website where they talk about a particular topic or a subject, and they have a few outgoing links that are broken, or they mentioned you a couple of times that you haven't really linked or been linked to. So these are opportunities that are out there. That's easy to find only if you just work with your SEO team. Just pull out these reports from Ahrefs or SEMrush, And the third thing is just working with your SEO team and your content team together. This does happen to an extent, but most companies that I know finish working on a piece of content and then say, okay, now let's add some SEO to it, just like in the case of PR and product marketing. But this is more, I'd say, rampant. This is because, and it's not really effective because the problem here is you don't really start with search intent, and that's what I've highlighted here. It's so much easier to create content when you know what the searcher wants, like what's on SERP that's ranking, what is a gap in those 10 different articles that are on SERP, and how can you think of those things as well as have a general SEO hygiene list so that you can from scratch work on something that is going to rank. And when I was doing this at Sales Hacker, you'd be amazed. Of course, we had extremely high domain authority on B2B sales topics. It would just take us half a day to rank on page 1 or like in the first 5 slots for something, because we did have a hygiene list and we knew exactly what to target, and we knew exactly what the search intent was. So just working backwards from there instead of just whipping a content out and a topic out of nowhere isn't really going to help you. And the second most controversial thing here is the editorial calendar. I personally am not a fan of this because I think it's too rigid and it doesn't really give you a lot of time to focus on, just be a little more flexible and focus on opportunities that start coming with a piece of content. And what I mean is you could spend that time that you spend on creating an editorial calendar and strictly following it with distribution and promotion, which I think is more important in the long run because you're consistently and deliberately working on getting extra backlinks, refreshing the content, making sure that it's getting syndicated, using this as an opportunity to ask for more guest posts, stuff like that, which doesn't really happen when you have a rigid calendar and all you're doing is, okay, Monday this is going out, Tuesday this is going out, Wednesday this is going out, and all you're ever doing is just publishing 35 different pieces a month, which are not performing at all, and it's just like published and forgotten. And the result of all of this is that you have a clear SEO checklist and you're measuring things that actually can help you with the next piece of content that you write, with stuff like average time on page. How much time are people spending? Are they scrolling all the way to the end? Do we have click-through rates which are pretty high for the different CTAs that we have on there, which is probably to attend a webinar or download something, I don't know, anything. So this is just a rough idea of what I think it could be like if these two teams collaborated better. And so I've just put together a rough framework of how it could be in terms of product launch if these 3 different teams work together seamlessly. And this is what it looks like. So it's just a 5-step process. Obviously, it's much more drawn out when you're doing it in real life, but this is just a high-level view of how things could be. So yeah, you start with product marketing and SEO, and I do that because product marketers are the ones who know what exactly the ICP is and what the end benefit of a particular feature or a product or anything that you're rolling out. Working with your SEO here is good because you don't want to just whip up some random term that your website doesn't rank for and try to push for it and just see the traffic go down. So that's where your SEO can help you, just like I mentioned earlier, to figure out those gaps, as well as taking a look at your competitors and seeing what else you could be doing on top of this most obvious keyword. And then you bring in the content team. All 3 of you guys sit together and you talk about the different content types. You talk about the campaigns. You talk about the click-through, the CTAs on these. It's just easier to map out your cadence when you have this kind of an aligned strategy together. Then comes SEO and content, which I think is the most fun part because that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. You work on your overall keyword strategy. You explain to each other, okay, this is how my process works. This is how the SEO strategy comes in. These are the different outlines so your writers are not working on something on a different tangent entirely. And then you tell them, okay, we need to be interlinking to all of these existing resources that already have a ton of internal links. Just make the whole user experience on a particular piece of content very good. Like, just to give an example, it should be mobile friendly. It should have images with alt text. It should have, it should be positioned in such a way that it's easy for any reader to go through really quickly. And then you bring in PR, SEO, and product marketing. This is the stage we're ready to roll out. And what is helpful here is, again, I go back to what I said earlier, is just for you to be able to figure out what is the easiest way out instead of always trying to say, okay, I need a placement on TechCrunch. There are so many other ways that you could still get a lot of visibility. And a huge part of that is obviously social these days, LinkedIn, and just making a lot of noise there in terms of video content, just having an entire team go all out. That can also be an effort that these three teams do together. And the final piece, which I cannot stress enough, is for you to go back to your content that you've already published. Make sure that it's consistently getting stronger, so that whatever you publish 1 month down the line, this existing content that you've built with backlinks, and you've got a lot of guest posts, and you've got a lot of authority on, is able to give that extra link juice to whatever new that you're going to publish. So this is just a framework, on a very high level that I think will work. And I'm going to be putting out a LinkedIn post about this, where I'm going to be adding a bunch of resources that I've used. And I personally have a checklist that I've created when I'm editing content for any of these things. So watch out for that, LinkedIn video, as well as the post I'm going to put out. And finally, what this really results is actually everything what everybody wants over here. You get a common understanding of your ideal customer profile, as well as the buyer journey and the pain points. And most often, you have to admit, your SEOs as well as your content writers or the content marketing team might not have an idea about all this as much as a product marketing team. And then obviously, it results in better content quality, overall user experience. And I cannot tell you how important this is, especially after the recent Medic update on Google. What really matters most is how you satisfy the user or the search intent, more than the number of backlinks you have or the domain authority. It's really just making sure that whoever's searching for a particular topic ends up where on your page, and they know exactly what they want to know, and then there's just good time on page engagement with what you've created. So even if you don't have a ton of backlinks, or if you don't have a lot of domain authority, you're still going to rank for it. And then, which I think the most handy thing out of this exercise of doing work together as a team is just a common set of, like a hygiene list of KPIs that you can hold each other accountable for. So it doesn't seem like you're finger pointing at the end of the day. I worked on a whole bunch of landing pages and it's not ranking, or like there's a product launch and you're launching to crickets. So those kind of things just don't happen. So that's about it. And before I wrap up, I just want to say that this is me, and this is how you can contact me. If you want to talk about ideas on how you can start doing this within your organization, if you just want to chat about how this has been working for you, if you've already started doing it, feel free to hit me up. I'm always happy to just share ideas with you. Thanks for watching, and thanks again, Wes, for giving me this opportunity to be on here. I've got a spectacular lineup of speakers on here, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.